Hi, Amanda. Thank you, Dr. Amanda Bennett.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us all the way from Virginia. It's so great to finally connect with you. Me personally, I have been following your page on Instagram for a while. I love how you approach the whole PT, rehab, strength work for dancers. So I'm very happy to bring you onto my platform and share you with all the people and answer some questions that some of the members have posed to me over the past few days. Thank you.
Awesome. I'm so excited to meet you, and I'm excited to get a chance to chat with you and answer any questions you all have.
So can we just dive in right away and give us a little bit of backstory of how you became a personal trainer specifically for dancers?
My huge backstory within getting into physical therapy is when I was a dancer, I was really into point. I loved point, and I had this big, big injury. And I went to multiple therapists, multiple doctors. Everyone said, "You're fine, you're strong enough, you're great, you're awesome, your foot moves more than it should." And I'd say, well, when I go on point, it hurts. Never once was I asked to bring my point shoes to a PT session. Never once did a doctor say, "Oh, well, let's see you on point." Never. So 2 years later, I tore the tendons in my foot and had to get a major surgery. And there goes point dancing for essentially, I guess I did it one more time after that, but I will never do it again. So that's just one of those big things where if someone said, let me see your point shoes and put it on, my technique was off. I was turning and rolling on my ankle. I was winging improperly. There was all these things that now I see in dancers, and I'm like, don't be me.
Right.
And if I was smarter as a dancer, I probably would have taken a break myself. But I said, well, doctor says I'm fine. I'll just keep going. And so that pushed me to do better than what I experienced and hopefully prevent the injury from occurring in the first place. And if it does occur, get you back on track the right way and not have it as dramatic as what happened to me.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. The foot. The foot is everything. The foot is everything. I ripped a piece of my first ligament, the metatarsal. I ripped a piece of the ligament off the bone and pulled a chunk of bone off.
Oh, goodness.
My first metatarsal. So I wasn't even able to walk properly. And I did that for 4 months. I was in this random pain that I didn't know what happened. And it took me out for 6 months. You don't pay attention and then you have to pay attention and it's almost too late, right? And that's so frustrating.
Yes, it's always almost too late. That's a good way to put it.
Right, and I hate when doctors are like, "Oh, you're good." It's like, you don't move. You look at a body and you learn to body from a dead body.
You didn't even see me do a pirouette. You don't know what I look like.
No, so I love that you really tailor everything to the dancer. Now, I feel like when I say that in my brain, I kind of get it, but maybe somebody doesn't understand the how you look at movement differently as a personal trainer, as a physiotherapist and trainer, because you do prescribe exercise and you really work with them and you break it down. What's the lens? How are you looking at movement? How are you looking at your training as a physical therapist through the lens of a dancer? I feel like there is just so much more information as a dancer that we have knowledge around movement that doesn't always fit the textbook.
Of course. And that's a good question. A lot of times, if we get a regular athlete in the door, someone who's a track athlete, baseball player, it's pretty straightforward. Strength, range of motion, those are things you need to work on. If I get a dancer in the door, their strength can be 110%. Their range of motion usually is flawless and great, but I have to look at their technique. So I take them through just a really basic technique class, and a lot of dancers hate that. "Oh no, I hate ballet. I don't want to do this." And as soon as they do something as simple as a plie and their foot rolls in, I say, "Look, your left foot rolls in every time. That's why your hip hurts when you do this." Or do a bat mai and you're gripping in your hip. So looking at the motions that we perform, not just a strength assessment and a straight plane. Because the typical strength assessment is here, push, hold, okay, you're good. But can you do that with your leg turned out above 90 degrees with your arms in a pretty port de bras? That's something that people don't look at, which is what I try to look at in an eval. And usually that's when the dancers are like, "Whoa, you're right. I'm not as strong as I thought I was."
Sorry, I'm laughing at that because I said Ron de Jam I have a new therapist for my foot because it's still, I ripped the ligament and I took chunk of bone with me. It still gives me some grief sometimes. And I said Ron de Jam, and he started giggling because he had no idea what I was talking about. And I was like a half circle with your foot. He was like, oh. And now he just loves, I give him terminology because he's like, I don't, like, no one does that. No one I work with or trained with were in these positions. So he's like, I have so much to consider with you in my room. I'm like, I know. So that's why I laugh at that. Because, okay. Continue.
And our legs are turned out, and they think that's abnormal, and we're not squatting with our knees behind our toes. We're doing a plie where your knees go over your toes. Everything's just different. And it's funny you say your doctor looked at it because our co-founder is the same way. If he works with any of my dancers, he has me write out list by list the pronunciations, how to say everything, because he's like, I don't want to say it wrong. What is this, Batman? I'm like, it's Batman. So he's just like that, and that's so rare to find now with someone who actually strives to learn the lingo. And such a simple thing, once you learn it, it makes a world of difference to the dancer. Mm-hmm. They can't say, oh, it hurts when I do a tour jeté. Oh, I don't know if that is, do one. We're in a 4x4 room. They can't just go do one.
Right.
So it's a big, big part.
Now, when you are prescribing exercises to your clients, I mean, when I had a lot of hip problem, my hips and my quads were, we had pain. It almost took me out. Couldn't sit down for 20 minutes. Couldn't walk up a flight of stairs. And this is like, that was 3 years ago. I was 28. And I really thought about hanging up the towel in like movement. And I realized all the contractions we were doing. Like, that's when I realized dance movement wasn't and isn't always life functional. Like, plies all the time over your knees, not the greatest for your hips. Contractions, you can't bend down and contract all the time. You actually, like, I didn't know how to hinge at my hips. So how do you stress the importance of the exercises that are, dance specific, and maybe what ones are those versus like the functional, like your body has to move this way, like this is how it's designed?
Yes, definitely. And that's actually something I just did a workshop before all of our quarantine happened that I found was a very difficult thing to stress, especially to the younger kids. The older girls seem to pick it up a little bit easier, but they're doing straightforward exercises like Romanian deadlifts or a simple squat. Yeah. And they can't do it with their legs turned in. So trying to stress and say, look, you work turned out all the time. You need to work the other way too. And working the other way is the optimal way to strengthen the muscles you need for a better turnout. So just trying to get that point across and stress it. And so I'll show them things turned out and turned in and have them do it both back to back so they can really get to that point across and go, oh, I do feel those same muscles working when my legs are turned in. And it does make it easier to get my nice turnout and my nice developed pace after you work them the other way, which is always fun for the little ones that go, no, but look, first position.
Right.
Just really trying to stress it and show the back-to-back difference helps a lot.
Cool. I mean, I think my trainer, when I first started with a personal trainer, it was after I tried Pilates, couldn't make the classes. My physical therapist, I had just no accountability to doing my exercises. And then when I went to a personal trainer, I actually was like, oh, I'm not even doing them right. Like, because we have a dancer, we're trying to do it in a dancer brain. I'm like, oh, that's actually not the way you're supposed to do it. So he actually said to me, he's like, you can do all those crazy lunges where your knees over your toes and you're so far into your back, but when you're here, I never want to see you do a deadlift with a turnout leg or a lunge where I want to like cringe. And it was really hard for me to hear that. But when I was in the room training, it made such a difference to like take myself out of the dancer brain and just be kind of like that, train the body. And I was able to get through like 6 rehearsals and not feel any fatigue, tweaking any muscles, feeling sore afterwards. It was such a massive difference.
It's a huge difference and so underlooked. I know at the last workshop I went to, I asked the girls if they had weights at home or if they went to a gym, and everyone just said, no, this is my gym. This is all I do. And I was, oh, you have to do more if you want your career to last.
Would
You have to work the muscles different.
Would you say that would be like the biggest thing you'd tell your younger self?
Oh, for sure, definitely. The one thing is do the exercises the therapist gave you, which mine gave me some basic stuff. They didn't help in the long run, but they also were like, here, try this. And didn't stress the importance of this is why you need to do it. This is how it's going to help you. They just said, here's a worksheet with some exercises. Go home and do it. And I was like, oh, I dance every day. Same mentality. I dance every day. What I do is way harder than this banded foot thing and picking up marbles with my toes. So I just toss it to the side and never did it again. So the importance of that. And even when I have my girls do their strength training, I say, wear tennis shoes. You're going to be working like you're in the gym. Wear tennis shoes, wear normal clothes. Don't come in a leotard and tights and ballet shoes. That's not what we're doing. We're not dancing. We're now doing a gym session, and then we'll change after, which I find makes a big difference. Even just changing your clothes puts you in like a different mindset in their world.
Oh, totally. I go to the gym looking like a gym person, and I go to dance class looking like a hobo.
Yes, exactly. Way different, and it gets that mentality.
It does. Too. Oh, for sure. Hey, Amber, you're watching. If you have questions for Dr. Amanda Bennett, you just put them in, and I will make sure that we answer them for you. Just saw one of my members pop up on my screen. Let's get to some questions, actually. And one of these questions comes from your post about your ankles. I know that's like a huge part of what really why you became and your path that you're on. Was that moment. So you started talking about advanced, essentially like releves and whatnot, but that not to be done with the acute side of the injury. Now, so many dancers, we roll our ankles or we have ankle issues, and someone, for myself, who really deals, I look at everything from like a fascia standpoint. I love fascia. It's so great. There's lots to be said about that, but I was like, oh, the acute side of the injury, we often get an ankle injury, and the first thing we're doing is releves and rises. So can you just kind of bring us back into when something happens, when we see one of our students get an ankle injury, and when we happen to have it ourselves, what things should we be doing in those acute stages?
So a lot of times the very acute stages, and it always depends dancer to dancer, which part of the ankle's injured, how it was injured, all that good stuff. But the very acute stages, get rid of the swelling and get rid of the pain is the main two things, and get their motion back. So a lot of very basic things like the ankle four-way with the TheraBand, so overlooked for an acute ankle injury. Gentle stretches to the foot, also very overlooked, especially in dancers, because we do have so much motion. So if a doctor looks at them, they're like, oh, your foot's fine. No, a week ago, they could stretch their foot way more into point than today. So focusing on those gentle motions, gradual weight bearing is tough. And like you said, a lot of times we just want to go straight back to releve, but balancing with our feet flat is a stage that a lot of times we skip right over. We go right back into releve, but get that foot working flat, and then make it harder. Stand on a pillow, stand on something that challenges that balance a little bit more. And of course, never overlook the hip strength. A lot of times when we get those ankle injuries, we stop. So now your hips are weaker than they were before, and then when you go back to class, you're doing everything wrong and compensating, and it just turns into one of those fun whirlwinds. So the acute stage is so important, and a lot of times all people do is ice and rest, and there's a lot more that can be done.
Thank you for saying that, because I have tried to... Apparently we're having a bit of a car honking issue going on right now. Okay. I try and stress that one so much when dancers find themselves in an injury, that they don't just stop. That is just like oversaid, and it's not true. So thank you for reiterating that. But it's not about jumping back into it or like doing those hard exercises. It's about bringing it down. Can we do the basics again? And keeping the range of motion. And you also mentioned in one of your posts that with like knee injuries, that we want to keep the range of motion going and the strength and flexibility. And you said it's oftentimes not the joint itself that's the issue. Can you expand on that? Because I think I have an idea of what that means, but I'd like the expert on that to put her 2 cents on that.
Of course. Oftentimes, especially if it's a knee's a pretty rare thing for a dancer to injure based off it, just the knee itself. It usually stems from something else. So looking at their technique and saying, well, every time you do a plie, you roll forward in your feet and your knee's now going forward instead of maintaining turnout. Now you're just twerking that knee, and that does not feel good, especially over and over and over again, and especially weak hips. That always gets people with knees because you're landing out of a jump and you need that hip strength to keep your knee in alignment. So you land out of a jump and your hips are weak, and your knee now, of course, goes in, and now it hurts even more, and things like that. They always stem from something else, and that's why I love watching technique. So I have girls do little jumps. I have them do like a little across the floor thing and look at what they do, and a lot of times well, your knee hurts because every time you land from a jump, your hips aren't doing what they're supposed to because they're so weak. So that's always a big factor.
What are they supposed to be doing?
So when you land out of a jump, I can try and show you with my fun phone. A lot of times when girls land, they land and their knee's going to cave in.
Yeah, they do. Oh, it makes me cringe.
Tell is not good. So when they land, even turned out, they'll land and their knee will cave in, and it should stay in proper alignment.
Right.
And that's all hip strength. That hip is what controls the knee alignment, and if it's weak, then they're not going to have the proper alignment, and they're coming out of these grand jumps and landing with that knee caving in instead of being in line with their toes, and that's where a lot of the problems come from.
Amazing. I have a question from someone. She wrote in, and this is a pretty complicated and like long years stemming injury, and I think she's at like her wit's end. And so maybe I was like, hopefully we can shed some light that you haven't already heard, but maybe coming from a dance perspective, you might, I'm not quite sure, but she had a injury back in the day in her IS joint, and it's never been the same. She gets this really chronic pain, and I'm going to actually bring up her email exactly and just read to her what she wrote to me. And then, okay, so she says, I had a bad SI joint, a dance injury in 2018, and it's been constant trouble even after continuous rehab, multiple therapists, chiro, sports med, massage, acupuncture appointments, and osteopath. And then her second question is, I broke my right fibula in dance in 2009, and it's never been the same, and it's very unusual tightness and strange feeling in scar tissue. Any help is appreciated. So those are some big problems.
That's two big problems happening.
So I wonder, she didn't specify the IS joint right or left either.
And sometimes they can go back and forth depending on the dancer and the injury presentation.
So she's also like a Pilates instructor. So she has, and a yoga, she has a very strong body, but that IS joint, and I do find that even some of my stretch clients, the IS joint is such a finicky joint. Like, what are we missing?
It definitely is very finicky, and a lot of times it can flare up, especially if we're doing a dance show or something where we're using one leg much more than the other, or we're kind of working one side more than the other for a specific show we have coming up. A lot of the muscles on one side can get very tight. The most common one is called your quadratus muscle, and so I have this problem with myself. That muscle gets so tight on me, even my sleeping position doesn't help. And so what you have to do is stretch, find what's causing it is usually the big part. Like you can have the diagnosis and what it is, but what's causing it to act up is the main point in this. Like, why is it acting up, and what's tight on her, what's not tight enough on her, what exercises has she done? Especially us dancers, we're very mobile in our backs, and so it's really hard to activate our lower core, which is a big thing that I see, especially we do come right back, and they're all the way back, and they come back up. That will hurt that SI joint. So working that lower core specifically and really taking it back to the basics, because sometimes if you see a sports med therapist, they're going to say, oh, they're active, here's all these really intense core activities, but did you take it back and activate the lower abs and see if she can do that first and then progress with everything after that, because I find that being a big problem a lot. And again, with the weak hips. So the weak hips and the strong core will definitely help with that SI joint pain and stretching, of course, but she's Pilates, so I'm sure she does enough of that. But again, stretching the right muscles. So finding the spot that's tight, stretching that.
So maybe it's not the SI joint. Maybe it's something different that's pulling that joint out of place consistently.
Definitely. It could be a variety of things. And again, it's tough to tell if the person's not in front of you, but she can take a look for herself and do a stretch to the side and see if that's really tight in that one spot. Then definitely stretch that guy out over and over and over again. You can take a tennis ball and rub the muscle out for more of a self-massage, which I find I like self-massages better than someone else doing it, because then you can control where you want it and how hard you want it and all that good stuff. So take a tennis ball, find that tight spot, and rub it out, get that muscle to relax a little bit, and then again, core. It's always about the core when it comes to SI joint and those lower abs specifically.
Really
if you do a plank and your back is extending the whole time, then you're not doing a proper plank.
Yeah, she's really good with her form, so that's why this question is so tricky. And I don't know if you know of the form of Pilates-based workout called Agree. It is like one of the most intense classes. Everything is super, super slow on this like reformer that is like on crack. And so she's super strong, but maybe she's like over tight in some area that we haven't addressed, and it's just constantly giving her that pain.
Definitely. That could definitely be an option, especially if she is continually working. If that muscle is already tightened, you're just going to keep working it in that tightened position. So really getting it to stretch out and then work afterwards. A lot of times if you see a chiropractor with SIJ, they'll correct it, but then you just go home and go about your day. You need to correct it, strengthen your muscles in that correction, and then go about your day. A lot of times people will strengthen, and then they're strengthening, but their SI joint is quote-unquote out of place.
Yeah.
But you need to get it where it needs to be, where it feels comfortable, and then strengthen.
Oh, I'm so happy you said that, because I hate when people are like, oh, I went to my chiropractor. I'm like, and then you did what?
And then what? Yes, exactly. Then what? No, it's not going to feel better.
Hence the strength work. Okay, so her second question about her fibula. So she broke her right fibula. She did it coming out of a jump. I know that. And it's this very unusual tightness and strange feeling in the scar tissue. I don't know if you have any experience with leg bone breaks and the scar tissue, and that was years ago.
Yeah, years ago. And so it could be very tight by now. So again, one of those fun self-massage things. I think I recently posted a picture for peroneal tendonitis, massaging the outside of my leg with that tennis ball. That helps a lot. Makes it feel better, of course. And then just gentle stretches on your own, just trying to get that leg to stretch out. A lot of fun balance activities will help that. After a break, you have to pretty much retrain your body on how to balance on that leg again. So that, especially if she skipped out on all the basics and went straight back to point or releve or whatever she was doing, go back to the basics, get those hips stronger, and definitely try and work that muscle out, that tightness. Just work with the range of motion you have and push it little by little each day. But you don't want to increase any more pain with it. So with that tennis ball, working out that muscle, yeah, it's going to hurt, it's going to be uncomfortable, but it shouldn't be causing pain, which is a big thing I see, especially with dancers. And an old injury like that, you still want to take care of it. So try a couple gentle things, see how it feels, but don't overdo it for sure.
So it might be a bit of a slower release work because it's so old.
Even some of the stuff you do, the myofascial stuff, could be helpful.
And slowly break that scar tissue down without re-inflaming it. Essentially, because when you re-inflame it, your scar tissue is going to be like, I need to help protect you, so it's going to deploy more collagen into that area.
And you don't want to be set back at all.
Right.
So it's got to take it slow.
Okay, cool. I have a question from Amber. What do you do when your physio tells you your facet joint in your back is causing lower back pain? What technique do you need for hip to strengthen them? Oh, okay. So two different questions. Your facet joint? I don't know what that joint is.
Okay, so a facet joint is basically where you have all the vertebrae in your spine, and and so two of them meet, and where they meet, there's a little joint called the facet joint. So basically, a lot of things can cause that to be irritated, but even though it's a tiny joint, it's just like your elbow. It can get swollen, it can get inflamed, it can get angry. The best thing in her case, if it is the facet joint that's acting up and not something else, get the inflammation to calm down, gentle stretches, same type of thing. Take it back to gentle core work to start with, but you don't want to inflame it anymore if it is an inflammatory response.
So she says, yeah, what you do in your physio tells you your facet joint in your lower back is causing your lower back pain. So you're saying bring it back to the core.
Bring it back to core and bring it back to take a little break, because typically if the facet joint irritation is inflamed, and it's the same as if you sprain your ankle, you don't want to keep running if you just sprained your ankle and it's swollen and inflamed. You want to take a break, ice it, stretch it out, and relax. So it's the same concept, it's just a different joint, and a really tiny one too in your back.
God, I'm sorry, Amber. That's hard to be told. Before going to her second question, the taking time off when you're actively in a season, how do you help your dancers manage that?
So I definitely tell them, don't stop dancing. So if you need to take time off, you need to take time off from that specific joint. So I've had girls in boots doing bar, but gentle bar. You have to modify it, of course. Continue with strengthening. You can strengthen every other joint in your body. You can keep going on with that. If it's some type of back irritation, do the routine and maybe don't do jumps, because landing from a jump puts a lot of compound and pressure through the back, because obviously you're landing out of a jump. And so modifying activities to where it doesn't hurt is what I usually say. So it hurts if you do a grand round de jambe. We're going to take them low for now, and that's what you're going to modify. But if it feels good and you do everything else, then you can do everything else.
Right. Okay.
Play it by ear per dancer.
Per dancer, but it's not stop everything. It's just we're not doing the full thing anymore, but we're still in it. Okay. Would it be, I'm going to just maybe pose this to Amber too, is actually show the physiotherapist the movement that's making your back sore. Because if we go back to what Dr. Bennett is saying, it is the technique that is usually, because we're always in motion, causing us the pain. So there's something.
I would 100% make sure they know what exact movement is causing the pain, not just a kind of a broad spectrum of, oh, it hurts your back when you dance, and they're going to say, stop dancing. Like, no, it hurts my back when I do a cambray back and then do this move afterwards. Then hold off on that for now, but here's a way we can get back to doing it gradually.
Cool.
So yeah, she should definitely have her see what bothers it, and then even what things make it feel better is a good thing to show them too.
Okay, awesome. And then she's saying, what technique do you need to do for hips to strengthen them? So we were saying strengthening the outer hip, I guess. Also like the glutes. I know from a fascia point, if your glutes are really tight, it loads right into your low back. Like the transmission of force just like skips over those too tight of glutes, and it just compounds in your lower back.
Definitely, and so stretching the glutes is so important. There's this tiny, tiny muscle called the piriformis muscle in your glutes, and it's so important to stretch that guy out, especially if you've been working it extra. And it's a stretch that dancers don't usually do because they're so flexible. We walk in the room, you can do the splits. You think, oh, I've stretched. No, you also need to stretch the other muscles. So your glutes is a big one. The piriformis muscle is a really big one, getting that guy stretched out. And as far as strengthening, definitely the hip abductors, which are the muscles on the side of your hips. So important to get strong, and those are also the same muscles that help with your external rotation, so your turnout when you are dancing. So you need these to be so strong as a dancer. And I see dancers all the time that they're much weaker than you would think they would be based off their dance background, and it's because they always work with their legs turned out, and they don't take the time to strengthen those muscles correctly, which is very important. So a lot of the videos we post, our legs are straight ahead, turned in the videos, just to kind of make it even more of a point, like you need to work out this way too, not just like a dancer. It needs to be a good back and forth thing.
Yeah, I would say 95% of the exercises that are inside Resilient Dancer, like our workouts, are all parallel.
Yes.
All parallel. What are your top 3, oh, that's the peace sign, 3 go to abductor exercises to strengthen those hips. What are your like top 3 you love?
I think my favorite one is the classic, the side steps. You know which one that one is?
Like banded?
You band on your feet or your knees, whichever one they're ready for. So obviously the ankle makes it much harder than putting it around the knees. And taking those steps to the side, that really works those muscles. Doing a single leg bridge is a good one because that gets the core involved, and you can also make that harder with the band around the knees. You can make it harder by turning out the leg that's elevated. I find a lot of dancers have a problem with that. So keeping the one leg turned out, the one leg turned in is very hard for them to do because it's just not a normal motion.
Right.
But that's a good one to strengthen the hip abductors and the glutes and the core at the same time. So I love that one. And then simple things like a step down off of a step. So your leg's parallel and you're just tapping the ground with your heel and going back up. But keeping that knee in line with the toes. Far too often you see people do that exercise and they're like, oh, this is easy. And it's, well, your knee's caving in every single time you take a step. So it is easy because you're doing it wrong. So that's a really good one that I like because it works a little bit of balance. It makes you really, really keep that leg turned in if someone's watching you. And you can make it harder by pushing their knee in and making them fight you. So now they're working that glute extra and those hip abductor extra to keep that leg in line with their toes. So those are my top 3.
Those are top 3, and I think I'm gonna like give myself a little pat on the back of like actually putting those in all of our workouts. But maybe we just need to get down to a little bit more focus and actually really take a little bit more time to check in with what your body is doing. I'm such a stickler for knee tracking. It is something I yell all the time, and I'm now seeing everybody do exercises online. You're probably doing it the same. You probably see so many people posting their online workouts now, and you're just like cringing at the knees falling in. I'm like, ooh,
you're not doing it right.
Ooh, that's gonna hurt you in like a year. Ooh. Okay, Amber says, my question is, there some body types that when you do any weight training you lose your flexibility and range of motion, or have to work harder to keep my flexibility and I just get tight? I find that when I use weights, there's a tightness then pulls on the rest of my body, and now I'm nervous to use weights at all. Though I find resistance bands and my body weight exercises to be good. Is this all in my head? Okay, so she's finding that when she's working out with weights, that she's losing her flexibility and becoming tight, versus when she uses bands and just body weight, it feels good. So she's thinking this is all in her head, this difference.
Definitely, if you use weights, it could make it more difficult to stay flexible, but it shouldn't prevent you from being flexible at all. I use weights all the time, and I still have all the flexibility that I used to have. I mean, I do squats in the squat rack, and I still do crunch-tays, and it's just more of an adaptation. What happens is I stretch every day now, and I used to only stretch maybe twice a week, but I've also gotten older, so the weights do make those muscles swell a little bit because your muscles are getting bigger. So what happens when you work out is you have those little micro tears, your muscles build up, they get stronger, and in return your muscles get a little bigger. So you might have to stretch a little more often. I wouldn't say using weights makes it harder to be flexible. You just have to keep up with your stretching. And again, if she likes bands and finds it easier to use bands, then just stick with the bands. Those are great. I love working out with the bands, especially since we've been home lately. All of my workouts have been with bands or holding my 50-pound dogs.
Yeah.
Trying to make whatever work, but definitely just keep up with stretching. And anytime you change your exercise routine, your body will take time to adapt to it, no matter what it is. So if you were to stop using bands, your body might take time to adapt to weight. Where's all my external resistance? So it's definitely just an adaptation process. And don't be scared of weights, especially upper body.
Yeah. And maybe just to speak to Amber too here, if she's listening still, from your experience in your past body lifting, what's that word? She was a bodybuilder. There might be some residual like nervous system kind of like old patterns that you got really tight and really sore because of those heavy weights, that your body's remembering how that was before. So maybe just taking time to kind of unravel that.
Yeah, it's a big adaptation process for sure.
Yeah. Cool. Do you have time for just a few more questions?
Sure.
Great. So I specifically, this one's like specific to me, but I mentioned it to a couple of my members, and they're like, oh yeah, me too. Okay, so when we do single leg deadlifts, it's one that's like, it's such a solid, it really helped my hips and my quads calm down, because my hamstrings and my glutes had to actually do some work for once. But I still get this tightness in my calf when I do straight leg single leg deadlifts. So like around, I would say like rep 8, I would get this, like, it just feels like the calf gets really, really tight all of a sudden. Can you speak to that? Is there something that maybe we're doing wrong?
No, I think everything's great. I mean, you should have some tightness, especially the glutes, the hamstrings, the calves. It will get tight. It's working. If you could try, do you do like a slight bend in your knee when you do them?
So we have variations.
Okay.
So we do a lot of them that go from like, we go into our single leg deadlift with bent, because we're working that like landing from our jumps and our arabesques, and we're working that. And then we'll do some that you slightly bend, and we do some that are just like straight leg.
Okay, yeah, definitely if your calf is getting super tight, and with dancers specifically, I notice if they do straight leg, single leg deadlifts, they're just hyperextending their knee the whole time. So I usually try to reiterate some type of slight bend. I mean, look down, and if your leg's straight, fine. If it's hyperextended, then it's too much extension at that point, and stick with the bent leg ones. Me, myself, I have to do a slight bend because I'll end up hyperextending, and then you just compensate, and that's when you can get that, especially excess calf soreness. But for sure, if it continues to be sore, just do a calf stretch afterwards. There's some exercises I do that certain parts get sore, and I'll just stretch it out, especially my hips. Every time I'm at the gym, if I do something, the single leg deadlifts, those get my hips sometimes for whatever reason. And so I just have to do an extra stretch in between each set. There's nothing wrong with that. But focus especially on that knee hyperextension with those guys.
Yeah, that's actually a good reminder, because I've really worked over the past 2 years correcting my hyperextension, but it's still probably a small pattern that I'm not even aware of, that I'm like slightly in it. So it's not quite visible maybe, but that I just bending it might help that. Okay, so for us dancers that were experiencing that the other day, let's bend our knees.
Bend your knees a little bit, and definitely because especially since it's multiple reps, once you get fatigued, you like go back into bad habits. So definitely.
Right. Yep. I always try and stress form, quality over quantity. I want to talk about shoulders.
Oh.
Specifically, shoulders, I think for all dancers is something we do. Like, why didn't someone encourage more push-ups? Like, why was it just a plank? But all this floor work, we have beautiful ranges of motions in our shoulders, and we need to be as dancers. But the bicep tendons are finicky. They're very much overstretched. Comes from a lot of really bad chaturangas over the days. Comes from a lot of bad, when we roll into the floor, a lot of us will our back of our arm muscles are not even on. I learned that the hard way. My trainer was just like, I have never seen someone so incapable of firing their back muscles, and you are on the floor all the time. I'm like, I know, because it was all in the chest. So we have like a lot of like rolling in the joint and that bicep tendon. What are some of your go-tos for helping dancers correct that?
Definitely strengthen, and I'm glad you brought the shoulders up, because once I started shooting, I was like, oh, I see a lot more girls with shoulder injuries than I thought I would. And then it clicked, like, when did I ever do an arm workout as a dancer? Never.
But how many people did you have to lift?
What was that?
But how many people did you might have to lift?
So many. How many times was I upside down? And how many times was I falling and catching myself? So yes, it makes sense. We should work the shoulders. And similar to what Amber is saying about, oh, if I lift weights, my muscles will get big, and then I can't do that. And that's just one of those things that dancers are scared of. If I lift weights, I'm going to have huge biceps like a guy. No, that's not how it works. You just need to strengthen the muscles appropriately. You need to get your back stronger. That's the big thing I say. And we try to post a bunch of basic exercises for shoulders specifically. And that is one thing that I've been to studios and done classes, and I'll say, okay, now we're going to do arms. And everyone goes, we've never done that before. Well, it's very, very important. And strengthening those back muscles helps strengthen that bicep so much. Like you said, every time you land, you're just crunching it and caving in, and we need to get that back stronger to kind of help with that load a little bit. Even doing port bras overhead, you're just using all upper trap and neck muscles if you don't have the back muscles to support your arm when you're holding it. So that's one thing that's really big for girls, and I try to lead them through port bras with TheraBands, and they can't go against resistance. All they can do is hold their arm there.
Yeah. So when we're strengthening the back muscles and we have these very over tight, I'll just give you the exact exercise that we're just like, I'm still trying to figure this one out, but it's pulling a band up overhead and then bringing it back down and feeling it right in that bicep tendon, like right where it wants to, the two grooves that they sit in just get really irritated, or I feel them just a little bit weak. Is that just simply because my back still isn't strong enough for the amount of overstretch that's happened to them?
It could definitely be weakness, and it could also be some form, because if you think when your arm's out to the side, your bicep tendon is in a pretty good position, your arm's nice and happy, but when you close it, you're really closing in that groove, and lifting it up overhead is hard anyways, especially if there is resistance, so that makes it even harder. So if you are trying to work at a closed portion, which is much harder, lower range of motion at first until it feels good, and then trying to get higher. Optimally, I usually try to go at a more open range, especially if there's more of an acute injury, because here it's a lot easier to lift that arm up and down, but once you close that groove and close that space, it's just much harder. So the same as working like a developpe or a battement, if it hurts above 90 degrees, we start below 90 degrees, and as soon as it stops hurting there, go a little bit higher.
Okay, so even just opening up our arms is gonna help that and go a little bit lower.
Yeah, so if you just do it single arm too.
Yeah, I was trying to work when we're trying to pull things through.
Yes.
Because it's a lot of movement that I've been seeing. We want to be able to like pull down and then like pull up, and adapting, making their workouts a little bit different here and there, targeting different moves. I'm trying to get it all for them. But we noticed that one, and everyone was like, my shoulders. I'm like, oh, there's something I need to ask. So there, okay.
Definitely your upper traps too when you do stuff like that. If you don't have the strength to go all the way up here, your upper traps are going to take over.
Okay.
Tightening that neck, and then when you come down, your upper traps are still, in your ear, and then you try to relax it. So that something to look out for is those guys taking over.
And that means we just got to bring it down and the back. More upper body, ladies. More upper body. Well, I don't think I have any more questions. That was very informative. I hope everyone who listens and watches gets to learn more, and if you didn't already know that strength is something that you have to be doing. It should be part of our practice. Maybe you're a little bit more convinced now. Is there anything you want to leave all the dancers that might be watching or listening with? Is there anything that you like, this is what they need to hear?
Definitely strength. Again, you don't have to be injured to see a therapist. We're not only about pain. Injury prevention is such a big part of what we do. I don't want to see you injured. I'd rather see you not injured and work on things that I know are weak before you come with an injury and now there's more problems. If you're in pain, don't keep going. Go see someone. Far too many times I see a girl that says, oh, my hips been hurting for like 6 months now. Now my knee and ankle also hurts, so here I am. Well, 6 months ago, this could have been ended, so now you'll be out sooner. So take care of your bodies. See someone when you want to. See the right provider. Again, when I went to therapy, I never once was asked to bring my point shoes to class. They don't ask you what you're doing show you. Try to find someone else that will learn your body and learn what dancers do. Other than that, keep up with the strength.
Strength, strength, strength. I wish I knew that so long ago. Oh, quick thing. Any words of advice for all those dancers that are super acro-y right now and getting themselves injured? Like, if they can do anything, I think I know the answer to this, but we're just going to say it anyways. If they can do anything this summer to help their next season, what do you think they should be doing?
Definitely strength training. If you're acro and landing a lot out of acro tricks, hip strength, watch your landing, record yourself in slow motion, and look at your knees when you land.
Whew.
If they're doing all sorts of in and out type stuff, take a break, jump from a lower distance, work on that hip strength, and don't get out of practice either. So if you can't do everything that you were doing in the given situation, then when you go back, you're going to have to start a little bit smaller and work your way back up. Don't go back full force. You've got to start comfortably and work your way back up.
Slow motion. Record yourself in slow motion. Good advice right there.
You see so many things that way, and I've had girls. I had one girl. She was funny. She was like, "My hips and my legs not all the way to the side. It's not all the way to the side. My turnout's not good enough." And I reported her. Her leg was straight next to her. She goes, "Oh, I'm trying too hard." Exactly. You need to record yourself. Look at what you look like, and it helps so much.
Amazing. Thank you so very much. I'm just going to finish the Facebook Live here.